What sets the IA mission apart is that when you're going to a non-veteran focused ceremony, you're going there essentially with a bunch of strangers. This upcoming Memorial Day ceremony 2025, we have 4 virtual preparation sessions. In those virtual preparation sessions, we're going to start developing a community amongst ourselves. We're going to develop this unit. When we get down to the site, not to say that it's very military, but I like to stay organized. There's a safety brief, there's accountability. We make sure we have a battle buddy system to make sure everybody has each other's back. And we always say in the IA mission, while we're there on campus and while we're part of the IA mission, we are our brothers and sisters keepers, and it's a responsibility to have each other's back.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Master Plant Talk. I am Tyler Hurst of Microdose Yoga, your host, and today I am with Ulises Lopez, a co-founder of the IA Mission. He has been excited to come on this podcast for weeks now, and it took very little convincing, but he's here and we're thankful to have him. So Ulises, who are you and what makes you come alive?
Well, first, Tyler, thank you for having me. As you know, I deal with my anxiety, and it took a lot for me to come to your show and go through this interview. However, I do want to thank you for not giving up on me and being absolutely supportive and being an absolute gentleman and easing me into this position. So thank you, my brother. I'm very, very honored and very grateful. Well, who am I? I'm one of the co-founders of the IA Mission, a veteran nonprofit that's focused on harm reduction in the veteran community. I'm also a 10-year Army combat veteran with the 82nd Airborne Division, have 2 tours under my belt. I'm a 2-time Purple Heart recipient, which is one of the inspirations of finding the pain through my tours that inspired me to seek ayahuasca. I'm also a father, a husband, a brother, and a son. And when I say brother, I don't say that lightly. Right. We have developed relationships throughout our lifetime that become a brotherhood, sisterhood. Right. And I consider the relationships that I nurture throughout, that I have nurtured and will nurture in the future, those are my family. I'm also a very devout advocate in the community, not only for just veterans, but of course, I have a firm belief that our responsibility, humanity's responsibility is to help life thrive. And for me, that's where I get my joy, right? I get my joy by helping others thrive, whether it's a plant. By the way, I'm somewhat of a novice green thumb. I love taking care of the plants with my 2-year-old, or if it's, helping somebody apply for their benefits. For me, I just love helping people. So yeah, I also want to share that, I'm a proud American, Mexican American, U.S. citizen now, and up to getting my citizenship. Throughout that path, I found that my love for this country has grown so much stronger because of the trials and tribulations that I had to go through in order to earn my citizenship. And so, with that being said, I definitely a patriot, but more importantly, definitely a humanist. I believe that as a whole, we take care of one another, regardless of the borders. So that's just a little bit of who I am.
Thank you. Yeah, we spoke a couple weeks ago when we saw each other in person for the first time in a while, or maybe the first time. I don't know. I
think
had
that
this
was the
feeling.
first time. I think
I
that was the
had this
first time we
feeling.
talked.
I swear that I sat with you in ceremony, but I don't ever remember. I can't place that we've ever done it, so I don't think that we have. Right?
Well, well, we might have sat together through ceremony, but I also want to thank you because I remember during the initial founding of the IA mission in 2021, you would bug me. And I won't say bug me. Let me take that back. You weren't bugging me. You were supporting me very adamantly of saying, hey, the IA mission, I heard through the grapevine that you and veterans are championing this. How can I help? Hey,
Yeah.
let's get some sweaters going.
Yeah.
Right? And at the time, right, we were learning, we were hitting a little speed bumps because everybody's learning, right? We were building
Yeah.
the plane in the air.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think like that's another thing I want to thank you, Tyler, is that throughout the progression of the IA mission, you've always been in our inbox, DMing, just supporting in the background. And it really shows a lot in your character, how not only you support the IA mission itself, but it's how you support the plant medicine community, right? To kind
Thank
of,
you.
again, help life thrive.
Thank you. If we hadn't sat in ceremony together, we obviously have shared the same ceremony energy. For sure. I like to start with just basically a timeline of maybe not totally your recovery and whatever else. We talked a little bit about, you growing up at the taco place, which were fantastic tacos. What was the taco place called again that we went to?
It was called
Tacos and More?
Just Tacos and More.
Just Tacos and More. Very good streets. I had street
Shameless
style
plug.
tacos. You had burria something.
I had queso birrias, brother. Queso
Did
birria.
you wasn't birria quesadillas or something like that? Wasn't it the
Kind of queso birrias. They kind of you swap with
quesadillas?
it.
Okay,
Yeah,
there we go.
it's kind of like the thing right now. So yeah, pretty good.
It looked really good. Okay, so your service, you said you were in for 10 years. When
Just
did
under
you
10 years.
Yeah, when did you enlist and and when were you discharged?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let me share how I kind of got into the military. So,
I know the story. This is a good story.
so I was born in Mexico in Manzanillo, Colima, right? And we migrated to the United States when I was around 3 years old, living in Washington State. Unfortunately, at the time, because of the crime laws, my father and all the males in our family they got encompassed in some type of conspiracy that basically hauled off all males in my family to prison.
Well, those
And
Rico. Okay, yeah.
yeah, so we were left with nothing. I think one of the most painful memories that I have as a child was watching the FBI come and raid our home and have all the women in handcuffs and just all of us, my cousins, my sisters, just on the couch just crying. And we were 3, 2 years old, 5 years old. We were just kids and we were seeing this. And my next couple memories, right, was that we found my father was he got moved. Well, a couple months after, I seen my father behind a glass window in Washington State, and little after that, he was transferred to the penitentiary here in Arizona, just north of Phoenix. I forget the name of the place. So I remember the only thing we had left was a little family van, and so my mom, man, she's a warrior, my hero, by the way. She kind
Yeah,
of packed up that van, and
yeah.
we had a major pilgrimage from Washington State down to Arizona.
Okay. And when was this? When did you move to Arizona?
I was 5 years old. I remember when we moved, like five and a half. The reason why I know this
So
is
so was
that
that 90s or was that 2000s?
no, that was in the 90s. Yeah,
90s.
so that
Okay,
was
got it.
90s. So that was let's say that was like in 92, 93. Yeah, so that was like in 92, 93. That's when I moved to Arizona. And I specifically remember why I remember that period of my life. It was my sixth birthday, and we didn't have anything. Literally, we had a table that I now know where we got the table. My mom found it by the dump, and some chairs, and that's it. And my older sister, who was only about 2, 3 years older than me, was watching us while my mother worked. And yes, we were in school, but my mom was trying to do her best. And just recall my sixth birthday, right? It was coming up, and I just, like a little kid, sheepishly come up to my mom and say, "Hey, my birthday's coming up." Full of beans, and all we ate for like 3 years of my life as a kid was just beans and rice,
Beans
brother,
and rice.
and
Yeah.
maybe tortillas. And my mom started crying. It was. I still remember that my mom started crying and she held me because she wasn't going to be able to provide a not only a birthday for me but a birthday for my sister. Now, the reason why I remember is because like this really was the first experience of and just how devoted as a mother she was, or she still is rather.
Hmm.
I remember it was my birthday's in January. My youngest sister, her birthday's in August. Come August, I remember we go to the little Kmart. I think now it's a Ranch Market right off of Roosevelt and 16th Street, right? But it was a
Oh, I know
Kmart.
where that is. Yeah, just outside downtown Phoenix. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So we get up there, and I just remember my mother she says, "Hey," we get in there. She says, "I want you guys to pick one thing." Right. I remember all that year we used to go in there. Hey, can I buy this? Can I buy this? My mom was like, "No, we can't. We can't afford it." And I remember she bought me. I picked a Raphael Troll Ninja Turtle that I
Hmm.
kept with me.
Hmm.
And it's interesting that you mentioned that. Do you mind if I share something with you?
So, all right, please show me your Raphael troll.
So So this is not the exact model that my mother bought me. It's not. I've had this now for years. I got it off of eBay. I don't know. It might have got stolen or lost somewhere. But the point being of that is that it's a reminder, at least for me, this little simple piece of plastic. The depth of a mother's love, and also like the example of perseverance. That even though we might not be there to provide our children and our family everything we want. Our love is enough, and through perseverance and just overcoming those trials and tribulations, we can have a better tomorrow.
It's fantastic.
So let me
Love
go
it.
ahead and fast forward to the military. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, so all right, so you're 6 years old. It's 92, 93. You come down to Arizona. or eats five or so. You get this Raphael, and that's the same model, but not the same exact figurine.
Exactly. It got lost somewhere down the line, but
Okay,
it's just a
it
good
happens.
example. Like it's like I have little tchotchkes here and there,
Mm-hmm.
but they're just
Mm-hmm.
reminders of different chapters in my life.
That's
And
cool.
and I find like in everybody's chapter, and there's a lesson in every interaction.
Okay.
And we call these insights, right, brother? Like through,
Mm-hmm.
you see these, you find these synchronicities, and through those synchronicities of life, you find these insights that inspire change, inspire
Okay.
action. And that's all it is. It's a reminder that, hey, don't give up. It's a reminder of my mom's love. So,
It's
but
nice. I love it. Okay,
yeah,
so we're gonna not to discount your childhood and your teenage
yeah. Let's
years,
fast
but
forward.
that's a conversation for definitely for we'll have that conversation later. I know that in your late teens, college,
Yeah.
college
Mm.
aged years,
Well,
18 to,
actually,
not that you went to college, but like
no.
was it
I was
17,
actually
18?
19. I was 19
19.
when I joined
Okay.
the military,
19.
but
Okay.
what happened was that, just like most people, you grow up in a poor community, you have a troubled youth. I dropped out of high school when I was a sophomore and I started working construction, right? I started doing that because I wasn't getting anything out of school. In fact, I went back my junior year just to wrestle. After wrestling season, I love martial arts. After wrestling season, I I dropped out again and I worked construction. What was happening then at the time is I started getting into drugs and I was obviously in the back with the wrong crowd. And I just recall that, well, I had bought this truck, a blue truck, and I had already turned everything over. I had spoken to, well, at that time um, trying to find answers for my life. I had ran into a recruiter and happened to be a Marine Corps recruiter. The Marine Corps recruiter was like, "Hey, dude, you're too fat, and you have a GED. You at least need a
A
diploma. We
GED.
don't take
Okay.
GEDs."
Okay.
I didn't even have a GED. So at that time, I was getting into a lot of trouble. And, I got to a point where I hit rock bottom. I was 18 years old, 17 and a half, 18 years old. And I wasn't going anywhere in life. And it was just really, really bad. And I just hit rock bottom. And I just remember that I had told my uncle. I had told my uncle what the issue was, what I had going on. And my uncle had taken me to Alcoholics Anonymous to talk to these people. And, I got this inspiration. I remember I walked through the same mall again. I talked to Sergeant Donachi. Now, this guy was from the Army, and he happened to
Okay.
be a Mexican guy.
Okay.
At that time, it was either I'm going to stay in Phoenix and continue working construction down this route, try to get myself out of this rut, or join the military and become a better person. Sergeant Donachi, he convinced me. He talked to my family. He said, hey, this kid can stay here and he could continue being who he is as a person, or he can give up his life for a bigger cause than himself. At the time, I didn't have anything left over. My
Yeah.
buddies were already going in jail. A
Yeah.
couple buddies had already died. And joining the military, first of all, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. When I joined the military, I thought I was just signing up. I was going to get some education and
Yeah.
go to school.
Yeah.
Well, apparently I signed up for an infantry airborne contract, and that's all she wrote. February 2006, I head off to Fort Benning, Georgia, for basic training, and it was the best decision I've ever made in my life. That was the best decision I've ever made in my life. Second best decision was getting out, but it was beautiful, man.
Fantastic. So you spent almost 10 years. So you get out of the military in
Yeah.
2015-ish, right around there?
2014, yeah,
2014.
2014, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So
So you get
you're
out.
going into 15.
Okay. So you get out. Have you met your wife yet, or have not met your wife yet?
No, I hadn't met my wife.
Hadn't met your wife yet. Okay. So you get out. You've changed. What's different about you in those 9-ish years? Like,
Yeah,
how do you talk about yourself differently versus 2006 versus 2015?
yeah,
Like,
dude.
what did it feel
Yeah,
like?
absolutely, yeah, dude. Look, I think the biggest thing that I remember, I'll never forget, Drill Sergeant Horde. Right, he was one of my drill sergeants in Fort Benning through basic, and I really still remember his name, still remember his voice, still remember that he wanted to take me to the woodline and whoop my ass. But it was the first person in my life that ever believed in me. And I remember I was pulled to the side. I was a platoon guide, and pulled myself, me, and another gentleman. His last name Chase, and we were both kind of pretty rough. Like one of the roughest guys in the platoon. Kind of came back from a pretty shitty area of the country, if you will. He looked me in my eyes, and he's like, "Ulysses, you're gonna go far." He's like, "You got a lot of potential." He says, "You're a strong leader. You can do many things, but you got to believe in yourself." He says,
Okay.
"I believe in you."
Okay.
And that really stuck with me. And it goes to say that the power of belief, like having belief in yourself and believing in others, is so powerful. So that's the biggest difference, in the From the moment that I went in, before then, I didn't have a strong support network here in Phoenix to say, hey, I believe in you. You're a smart guy.
Hmm.
Here's these opportunities. Let's
Hmm.
remove these barriers so you can succeed. Versus in the military, it's like you can be anything you want to be, right? You
Yeah.
just got to believe in yourself and believe in your team. Oh, and so that's something that I took away. Yeah.
So you come out of the military, you're in better shape, you're in
Yep.
better physical shape for sure.
Right. Yeah.
You're in better confidence shape, you have more confidence, all that type of
Right.
stuff. How is your mental and your emotional side? Because I mean, you've been doing what you do. There's no way you didn't have some sort of effect. I mean, anyone who would be affected by that. I'm not saying you may or may not have had clinical PTSD, but you certainly had, some emotional and
Right. Right. Right.
challenges. And so what was that like coming back to the state, I guess, to
Right.
Phoenix?
Yeah. Well, we before I answer that specifically, we gotta put it into context as to
Okay.
why I was in that position, right?
Okay.
So, I'm very proud to say that I was with the 82nd Airborne Division, Alpha Company, First of the 508 Parachute Infantry Regiment. And we were ground pounders. And my 2007, 2008 deployment, we were tip of the spear in Afghanistan. And my first deployment, get into a very hairy firefight, and I take a gunshot wound to the chest. What that looked like, that gunshot wound to the chest, I had to have two blood transfusions. I was resuscitated twice. What kept me alive actually was an experimental emergency surgery that they did, and I believe it was, forget the name of the military base. I'll have to get back to you on that, but they had to do that in Afghanistan, and
God.
because my wife was my wife was a Jehovah's Witness. I was a Jehovah's Witness, and they kind of believe in divine, like you just let things roll. My commander, Captain Pelican, was like, no, we're gonna go ahead and violate that, save the soldier, which is good because my wife was like, yeah, 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 no, save the soldier when they finally
Yeah.
got a hold
Yeah.
of her.
Yeah.
I also found out that when I was being transferred from Afghanistan to Germany, I also flatlined again, bird, and it took them opening my chest, massaging my heart, and shooting it with adrenaline to bring me back.
Holy
You
shit. So
know,
you basically, I mean, essentially clinically
twice,
died 3 times?
twice,
Twice,
twice, twice.
resuscitated twice, and then
Yeah,
flatlined one? Oh my God.
yeah, yeah, twice.
Jesus.
No, flatline twice, resuscitated twice. Right, yeah, and then with these two blood transfusions, and I think the hardest thing with that is that I did have severe brain damage. I mean, it's a funny story, man. My buddy Joshua Hancock and Johan Rwano, those are the two soldiers that saved my life. Love those guys. Shout out to those dudes. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be alive. But this is a funny story, man, or a funny little detail on that is that Joshua Hancock is from Mobile, Alabama. And the part of my brain that was damaged from the blood loss caused me to wake up with a country southern accent. I promise you, dude. I had a country accent for like a month, man. And my sisters
Wait,
used to
hold on. Are you saying that you have to be brain damaged to have a country accent?
No, no, I'm not.
Okay.
Not saying that at
Of
all.
course not. No, it's your speech. It's the way your speech goes in your head. Yeah, of course.
It's the part of the brain that regulates speech, right? But I woke up with a country accent, and then another thing too, because I love reading so much, is that I wasn't able to read. I couldn't. In fact, that was a struggle. Like for 3 years, I had to relearn how to read because of that. And another thing that was painful, man, is like my unit really got chewed up that first deployment,
Sounds
and
like it.
so literally within a couple of weeks, here comes my squad leader got shot, then my team leader gets shot. Right. And then I start seeing people like my buddies from other units, but in the same deployment. I got a buddy that took an RPG to his legs, and it was just starting to seeing that. So it's like not only am I like dealing with my recovery, which it was a 9 month recovery to deploy back, which I did. I did end up deploying back and finishing the deployment with the team after getting shot. But it was that moral injury of seeing all these soldiers
Yeah.
being wounded and just completely
Yeah.
mangled, and so that was painful. And that was my first deployment. My second deployment, we deployed. I was there '07, got shot, finished out in '08, and then we deployed again in 2009 and came back in 2010. And that
Jesus.
'09, 2010 deployment, man, I was really grateful that, had the honor to serve again with Alpha Company. I had the honor to serve with great, great people. We lost a lot of good people in both deployments,
Yeah.
and developed strong memories. And I just remember my second deployment, I received another Purple Heart. We were in a part of the Argandab River Valley. And like soon as fighting season comes up, you just get rocketed all the time. And I just remember this one evening where they start shooting at us from a mountain, from a hillside, and so we're all returning contact and we're returning fire. I'm out by the Hescos calling for fire. Our mortars are in the mortar pit, just just taking my commands and hitting the targets. And that following morning, when the platoon went out to do a BDA, battle damage assessment, to see, okay, let's see what the enemy casualties are. From the opposite mountain, they shoot at us again.
Jesus.
We stayed back with a small team to protect the fob, but being we stayed we stayed to protect the fob, and we were by the bunker. There's this big bunker that you can kind of go into, and it's really crazy how the rocket sounds, right? We heard the poof, but it was actually like, and we thought it hit somewhere outside the wire, but as we walked out, right, it finally hit, and it hit like 15 meters from us. And I took a little tiny scratch in my shin. In fact, my medic,
Tiny scratch. Was it like this big, or
no, literally, it was like
literally a tiny scratch?
a
Okay,
little scratch,
you're
dude. It
not
was a little,
downplaying
yeah.
it. Okay.
But it was the actual concussion, because I was coming out of the bunker. It
Right.
was the explosion, the concussion that really rocked me. But my buddy Hal Bison, funny story again. This is what adrenaline does. After the medic kind of cleared everybody, they finally noticed, hey, what do you got sticking out of your arm? This dude had like a cassette tape sized piece of metal just sticking out of his delt, and
Jesus.
he didn't even notice it. And
Jesus.
so we got really lucky. But I think like my second deployment, I just want to note this. My second deployment was so much easier than my first deployment. I just recently finished a book called Damn the Valley by William Yeski. I recommend everybody to read this book. It's such a great book. But I realized why we didn't take as much contact as other units did in the Argonaut River Valley. Man, I was fortunate to be, and this is not to say anything on anybody else's, any other unit or platoons or anything, but what I know, because I can only speak about the unit that I serve with, right? We were really good to those people. And, I remember that the AMP, the Afghani National Police, we were partnered with, they would always find the I. Oh, there's an IED. Let's remove that for you guys, right? There's this intelligence. Every time we went into these towns, I served with a bunch of good soldiers that had such great hearts, and we would get stuff mailed in from our families, and then we would share it with the local villages when we went out there. My PL, man, he was fantastic. He was a genuine person that was legitimately out there just to help the people. It wasn't about everybody's an enemy, which I heard that from other units, right? But I could only speak about my unit. And my unit, we
Yeah.
weren't like that. I
Yeah.
also, that second deployment, I lost a good friend of mine. He was my PL from the original platoon.
Say PL. What does that mean?
Platoon leader. My
Platoon leader.
platoon
Okay.
leader, yeah, platoon leader, yeah. So my first PL, right, was well, had multiple, but in this deployment was Salvatore Corma, and he was a really good dude. And I remember when he first got to the unit, he was a little guy, dude. He was a little short guy. He got to the unit, and I went like this because he was a little short guy. When he got to the unit, right, I remember me and my buddy Watts were like, "Hey, man, let's grab this Cherry's bags and let's fucking hide it." We had a gun ho captain that as soon as he got there, he said, "Hey, we're gonna go out on mission." So the PL left his bags in the middle of the base, and so I grabbed the Joes. I was a sergeant. Hey, let's go ahead and let's start moving these bags. Let's go hide them. And so this PL gets back, good sport. And I remember this guy first day to our unit. It's 11 o'clock. He's been walking up and down these mountains and going through these villages, and then now he has to find his bags that all the soldiers hid throughout the base. But you know what? He was a good sport, and he
Right.
was a really nice guy. And I remember I got moved to another platoon, and then I saw him again when I was going home on leave. And he was actually going home. There was a medical emergency with his father, so we had ice cream together. And yeah, we had ice cream together. I think it was Kandahar before flying out. And then when we were coming back, he was coming back at the same time. Really, really nice guy, man.
Nice.
A,
Nice.
a couple of just a couple of weeks later, we hear over the radio that there's a KIA in
No.
an Alpha company, and it turns out it was my PL, and he died
Oh.
protecting his soldiers, man. I want to honor his memory by stating that
Mm-hmm.
there was an IED that was marked, and his sergeants were going to go mark it, but he said no, that's too dangerous. I'm going to do it, and he went, and then he made the ultimate sacrifice. With that being said, it's painful, but Trudy Korma, his mom, I still talk to her every year. She'll call me. I send her pictures of my kid. She says she has a strong heart. She always says that although I lost a son, I gained 32 more because the
Yeah.
entire platoon takes care of her. It's
Yeah.
just you build these deep bonds after serving that make you appreciate life.
Sounds like it. It sounds like it.
In that Before I got moved to AT3, the platoon that was in the Argandale River Valley. Um, I recall that we were off of Highway 1 in Fob Shajoy, and was right off of Highway 1. Everybody knew that we were right off the highway. A vehicle can just turn in and pretty much take out soldiers. And just one day that manifested into this reality, if you will. And I just remember Echo Company was dropping off resupply, and everybody was like happy because there's mail, there's protein, there's food. Let's freaking we're all together. And all of a sudden we hear a big explosion, and I tell everybody, let's jump in the trucks, because at the time we didn't have any bunkers. So I thought it was indirect. The intel, from what I recall, was that, hey, you guys could be hit with indirect, which was kind of funny since Chajoy was in the middle of the village. But hey, whatever. So we ran into the trucks, and then we wait a couple minutes. Nothing happens. I get out. Let's get your shit. And I other NCOs, sergeants, are, hey, let's get your shit on. Let's go secure. And I remember
Mm-hmm.
running out there, and it was tough because I remember serving with Staff Sergeant Cleaver. I was a jump master for my company, and a lot of times I had to cover down on jump master duties. And then I just remember, and this is back in Garrison, back stateside. So we would be out there, Echo Company, issuing out parachutes, and just making sure everybody's squared away. And then I'm out there just whole king of checklists, making sure everybody's good to go, everybody's where they need to be. And I go out there, and then I just kind of it was the first time I've seen something like that, and it kind of it shocked me. But the military does a good job in teaching you that a body is just a body, and that's at
Yeah.
that time.
Sure.
That's what it was I seen, and
Yeah.
I just remember myself, my buddy Messick, who was out there, Joe Messick. We take the remaining frame off the V-bed, the vehicle-borne
Mm-hmm.
improvised explosive device,
Mm-hmm.
off of his body, and we put him on a stretcher. People don't realize how deep gauze go inside an arm, just to stop bleeding. And I just remember putting him on a stretcher, and we're taking him, and I'm looking at him, and I'm talking to him. We're all talking to him, and I just kind of see that last breath, missing arms, missing legs. So we take him inside the aid station, and you see Frazier just in shock,
Yeah.
another dude from Echo Company, but at the time it's just a body. And I just remember looking at those poor young medics trying to contain this soldier, and then I'm just in NCO mode, head outside, tell get with my platoon sergeant, get with the squad leaders, and make sure that we got the fob secured. At the time, it didn't really hit me because we're just doing our jobs rather. But it wasn't until getting out the military, and in fact, even before getting out the military, there's a clear distinction between like post-traumatic stress disorder and what moral injury is. And moral
Yes.
injury today is becoming more and more
Yes.
prevalent, right? As we
Yes.
identify that,
Yeah.
having witnessed that, having seen, I mean, I could just name names of the people that we lost in our unit, and people the thing is, as a jump master for your company and your battalion, you don't just belong to one squad, or you don't just
Mm-hmm.
belong to one platoon. You
Mm-hmm.
belong to the entire freaking company. Literally, like, you're talking to everybody, you work with everybody, you get to know everybody on a personal basis. When you're doing jumps at 2 o'clock in the morning on a fucking Saturday, and you're not jumping, but you're a jump master, so you got to be out there to account for all those soldiers. You're out there
Yeah.
sucking wind with those guys,
Yeah.
and you build these relationships because being in those situations, kind of brings people together. And so, kind of getting out, I think getting out, I was just morally exhausted. Not only from the decisions that were being made, that are out of the military's hand, and really aren't representative of the American people. They're decisions that are being made that that really can make a person be ashamed of what those decisions stand for. And so, what really led me out was that after my second deployment, I was a hand-to-hand combat instructor, right? I used to box and wrestle before joining the military, and
Actually, hold on.
so
Could we just
yeah,
pause really quick?
yeah,
I want to
absolutely.
do a little. I want to do that breath exercise because I just want to give some space for all the people that you've talked about. Because that I can feel that coming off. If you want to do 3 breaths with me, I'm gonna breathe out like I'm breathing through a straw. I'm breathe in through my nose into my belly, and I'm gonna sigh. We'll do that 3 times, and just to sort of give them some rest, let their souls rest a little bit. So if you want to sit up, if you have a glass of water, I just saw you take a drink. So let's go ahead and breathe out together through a straw. Breathe in through your nose into your belly. And sigh. Oh. Breathe out through a straw. Breathe in through your nose into your belly. And sigh. Oh. Last time, breathe out through a straw. Breathe in through your nose into your belly. And sigh. Do a really good job of sharing those stories, Ulysses. I mean, I can feel your care and your passion, your compassion for all the people that you've served with, and that you are, I gotta tell you, which we're gonna talk about in a little bit, your energy and your ability to help others and your drive is, I would say, as someone I've never served, my father served, both my grandpas served, you're honoring them. I would feel honored by you as to what you're doing. So I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
I think
So
like I think the only point of pain and grief that that it's kind of just for everybody, all the guys that are going to watch this, and I've never talked about this in like in such a
yeah,
public setting, and
yeah.
it just doesn't do their memory justice. And I think like
I think
I
you're doing
haven't
good.
even
You're coming as close as possible, I would say. Yeah.
I haven't even mentioned McMurdy, right, who was the first chaplain assistant that died since the Vietnam era, right? He
Wow.
died in AMCOP. We didn't talk about Sergeant Tate, who died in a bunker protecting a child, right? Haven't talked about one of our good friends and interpreters, Hassan, who drowned in the middle of a firefight in the Arghandab River Valley. I found that in my service getting out, right, I had wanted to do more, right? So
Hmm.
when I became a combatives instructor, got in really good shape, and I wanted to challenge myself. So let's kind of get this a little lighthearted. My battalion, my company, with my First Sergeant Quinn. Shout out to Aaron Quinn. We
Okay.
had this rule.
And so this is what, 2011, 2010
This
ish.
is 2010, 2011.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is 2010, 2011. So I actually get back, and my unit deems that I'm kind of too fucked up in the head. That, hey, you need a break. Let's get you off of the line. Let's go become a jump master instructor. Right? These are guys that teach people how to become jump masters. I didn't want to do that, but one of a sergeant that I served with, Sergeant Haber, for my first deployment was the NCOIC for the fight house. I love fighting, right? Right now I'm a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt
And you wrestled in high school and all that type of
in high
stuff.
school,
Yeah.
so I
Cool.
love it. So I said, hey, I want to talk to Sergeant Haber. He's like, hey, you can do this. We'll take you, but you have to compete for this position. So I get all the signatures from my command. In order to compete for this position, you know, you have to go through level 1 and level 2. And after those two courses, they decide, and it's usually the honor graduates that get selected to be the instructor. At
Hmm.
least for the fight house at the 82nd at the time. And I remember I went to the finals both times, and I lost the finals both times. And I lost to my buddy. Sergeant Gold. I forget his first name. Really nice guy, but the fight house still chose me as the instructor just because I had. I don't know why they chose me.
You have a talent. You have a way about you. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, so I got selected, but check this out. At that time, I went to Fort Benning, dude, to Fort Benning for the Advanced Leaders course. And so I'm down there, and they say, hey, the Army needs Ranger certified NCOs in the Army. At the time, there was 400,000 soldiers, rough estimate there, and there's about 600 Ranger tabbed NCO sergeants. Right. And so they were pushing them. So the advanced leaders course are for NCOs, non-commissioned officers. So I attend, and they say, hey, if you do this, you won't have to go through the pre-ranger course, right? And then go to ranger school. So let me explain what that is. All right. So what
Is this
pre-ranger?
what one thing is this the I think for a lot of people, is this like Top Gun? Is this like the best of the best to compete, and then some of them come back as instructors? I mean, not the same thing obviously
No,
as
no,
Top
no,
Gun,
no,
but
no.
is it a similar idea, or is it a completely different type of?
No, it's completely different. I think I
Okay.
might be, yeah, I may be, maybe. Let me take it back a little bit, right? So the fight house is something else, right? It's a combatives instructor, right? So
Okay.
it's
Okay.
hand-to-hand combat instructor. Throughout my course and throughout the career of anybody who becomes an NCO, you'll have to go to the advanced leaders course.
Got
These
it.
are
Okay.
for
Great.
NCOs,
Right.
Yeah, and so it's like an intermediate like leadership course for
Okay.
sergeants, right?
Okay.
And while I was taking this course, that it's natural course of progression for anybody's career if you're in the
Okay.
military. They said, hey, we need Ranger certified instructors or Ranger certified soldiers or sergeants in the military. So they said, hey, if you agree to go to Ranger school directly after the advanced leaders course, you don't have to go to pre-Ranger. Now, what pre-Ranger is 3 weeks of absolute misery, no sleeping, no eating, and it's basically a war of attrition. And the last people standing, if you pass that, then you get to do that for 60 plus days again
Jesus.
to get your actual tab. But
Shit.
check this out. After I got shot, after my first deployment, but before my second one, I went through the pre-ranger course in Fort Bragg. Anybody in the comments, you guys watching this, please correct this. But I believe the pre-rangers course at the time in Fort Bragg was the previous jungle warfare school that was used throughout the 70s, 80s, and 90s, right? And so they turned that into the pre-ranger course. I failed that pre-ranger because my body wasn't healed. I believe, well, what happened was that during a PT session, during a smoke fest, I just had a medical emergency. I couldn't keep going because, I had just gotten shot less than a year. Well,
Jesus.
little,
Yeah.
little less than a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
So, and I
Your
was,
body
again,
said no.
I'm missing, I'm missing a portion of, missing the lower right lobe of my right lung. There's just a lot of my body still getting used to it.
You
Right.
don't really need your whole lungs, I guess. Yeah. You have two,
Nah,
right?
not at all. I just need a lobe or
Yeah.
two.
Yeah.
So, okay, so let's fast forward. So this is 2012 now, right?
Jesus.
I say, hey, I'm going to go ahead and do this, right? From advanced leaders course in Fort Benning, I'm going to go to Ranger School. Brother, 3 days before graduation, fucking Sergeant Major comes and says, psych, you're going to pre-Ranger, then Ranger School. But this is why I decided to do it. I was going through a divorce. And again, this going back to shout out to Sergeant.
So you were married before, and then you got married to. Okay. Okay. That makes more sense. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So what happened was that when you're going through a divorce in my unit in Alpha Company under First Sergeant Quinn, if you're going through a divorce, or you go to Ranger School. You go to Ranger School and you're gonna fucking suffer for 60 days and get your head straight instead of staying local stateside and just drinking your sorrows
Instead of
away.
wallowing in.
Yeah, you're gonna go. And so that was the thing. And so even though I was part of the fight house, I remember texting for Sergeant Quinn, and then we're talking, and I was like, hey, should I do this? Should I go through Ranger School? This was actually the first introduction to the power of visualization. He said, fuck yeah, Lopez. You fucking get your ass to Ranger School. You're going through a fucking divorce. Get your head straight. Come back. Leave the fight house and come back to ACO, right? And then you know what? Or come back to the 82nd. At the time, he became a fight instructor for the 18th Airborne Corps. By the way, that's how we had a good relationship with First Sergeant Quinn. He was the baddest motherfucker, could whoop people's asses, like really good dude. But I just remember when I say the art of visualization, I had failed the pre-Rangers course in North Carolina, and so I was being challenged to do it again. And I just remember I got a Ranger tab, and then I got two of them. I put one in my little bathroom mirror, and then
Hmm?
I put one above my bed.
Okay.
And I was, in my head, I was like, I'm not going to let this defeat me. I am worthy. I'm strong enough. I'm able to do this. Right. And, that's what it was, dude. So, anyways, I get to pre Ranger. I do that. And immediately I think they give us like 6 hours to refit. And then you go off to Ranger school. And then I went straight through Ranger school, lost like 35, 40 pounds,
Jesus.
and then came back in the fall of 2012. I went in there like at 200 pounds. I came back at like 165 or something.
Jesus.
Lost so much weight.
You at 165?
Maybe I'm estimating there, but just like
That's
I was
that's
really,
not much for
I
you.
was,
Your frame is big.
I'm a big
Yeah.
dude. I'm a
Yeah.
big dude. Well, I'm a little bigger now because
Yeah, but
I've
I
been
mean, you're still your shoulders are big. Your legs are. You're just a big guy. Like,
I'm a
yeah,
big dude, right?
yeah.
And so I mean, when you look at Ranger School is the best decision anybody can make if you're going to be an NCO in the Army and you're going to be an infantryman. The reason being is that it's not only a great leadership course, right? But it also teaches you to be a leader under emotional and mental, physical duress. All that together combined, you still have to lead troops and you have to engage the enemy and you have to complete the mission. And I've created great friendships throughout Ranger School, but more importantly, I discovered something about myself. That was the first time I got the example. The only limitations that we have is the limitations that we place upon ourselves here, right? Ranger School might not be big for a lot of people, but for me, it's big because, again, the Army was going to chapter me out after I got shot. I wasn't supposed to be physically able to do some of the things that I've done. I mean, since getting shot, like I mentioned, I've earned my black belt in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. I continue to challenge myself physically every day. Me and my son are planning the rim to rim to rim this fall. So I continue to challenge myself. But again, it was the first example for me that the only limitations that exist are the limitations that we set for ourselves here.
Jesus.
So I think now that's kind of put everything into context about my mental health after the military.
Okay. Okay.
So leaving the military, this is leaving the military. I was in a terrible relationship. I was getting out, actually. I was really bad into drugs. I remember one of the biggest points of shame for me is as I was getting out, I had one of my
When you say
getting out.
drugs, like what are you talking about drug wise? Like
Well, the point, like, anything can be abused,
yeah, and
right?
you
Everything.
were abusing whatever you were
Exactly.
using.
I was abusing whatever I was taking, right? And I just remember getting out and just seeing an NCO that really believed in me and I really respected. And he just seen in my eyes and he see how drugged out I was, how I wasn't in a good place. And I still remember that. But getting out of the military, when I got out, I went straight to school, right? Tried to get my shit together. I had
What
a
school?
kid.
What
Yeah.
school? Community
Gateway
college or
Community College.
Gateway Community
Actually,
College? All right.
Gateway Community College. So I
I
went to
love
Gateway Community.
I loved community college. I went to community college up in Washington State. I loved community college.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Dude, community colleges are the bedrock of the actual community. And the cool thing about Gateway Community College, it's at the time it was a transient. Actually, I'm going to chop this up. It is the Maricopa College District is the largest community college
Yes.
district in the United
Yes.
States, right?
Yes.
And Gateway serves the largest foreign exchange student population, I
Okay.
believe. Yeah, but they do great things for the community. In fact, that is the health of the community, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is your community college. You fund those and you create programs for
Yeah.
the community to thrive and expand.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, no. So I get out of the army. I get out of the army and I was going through a custody battle with my first wife. I was still dealing with drug addiction, my brain. The thing that I have learned since about trauma is that when you go through traumatic events, even if it's like witnessing it, right? And on top of that, you got to encompass like the TBIs that I got, not only from the blood loss, but from the concussions of the blast. But it's that they damage the part of the brain that regulates impulse control. And
Mm-hmm.
so there's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
impulsive decisions that are making. I was very emotionally dysregulated. I wasn't going anywhere. It was terrible, man. And so this is when I started having the nightmares, right? In the military, you're so busy. They keep you busy and you just always got to execute that you don't have time to breathe and actually think about those things. And, it was the first time that I started witnessing some peace that I didn't have to get up on a Wednesday at fucking 5 o'clock to be for PT at 6:30. I could kind of sit there with my thoughts in my own head. And this is when I started kind of, I started unraveling, if you will.
Yeah.
In fact, I was introduced to who's now one of my mentors and best friends, Wynn Tyner, through this program called the Sentinels of Freedom Scholarship Foundation. Great program. They said, "Hey, Ulysses, you're a wounded veteran. With our program, we want to help your education career, your education, help your academic route by supporting you, right? And we're going to go ahead and put you together with this mentor." And they put me together with Wynn, and through that program and mentorship, I was able to start um, removing those bad habits and impulsive decisions out of my life. In fact, when I graduated from Gateway in 2017, I was the keynote speaker of my college graduating class. In fact, I'll send you the YouTube
Holy
video.
shit. Wow.
But
That's
that
cool.
was,
That's really
yeah,
cool.
for me, it was cool.
It's
It
really
was, it was
cool. It
really
sounds
cool,
cool to me too. Yeah, that sounds fantastic.
bro. The school was so, the school did something very cool. So what they did is we had some form of a metamorphosis ceremony during the
Yeah.
keynote speech.
Yeah.
So what I did is that I went up there, I sat back there in my dress blues, and then they said, and Ulysses is going to give the keynote speech. I get up there, I give the speech, I thank my family and my friends, and then the president of the school comes, and then they put my graduation gown and then the cap, because I was once a soldier,
Yeah.
and then
And you're a
I'm
different
gonna
stage of your
try
life.
that.
Yeah.
Exactly. It
So
was
you
cool.
went from getting out of the military in 2015-ish, 2014, 2015-ish,
End of 2014. Yeah.
addicted and unraveling and 2 years later, you gave the keynote speech at your graduation from Gateway Community College?
That's true. That's right. That's right. But
Oh,
this goes
wow.
hold. But check this out. But this is the thing. The big takeaway there, Tyler. The big takeaway there is that like when you know that under methamphetamines, whether it's a prescribed or it's illicit drugs, you're able to just power through, and as long as you're hitting the
Yeah,
checklist, you're gonna
yeah.
be fine. And
I was
that's
an
all I
Adderall
was
free.
doing
I
in
was
the
like,
period,
yeah, yeah.
right? So I was just hitting the checklist. I was hitting the checklist, and kind of going through it. And so it was just a big band-aid. It was all I was doing was focusing on the school so much to just mask the trauma. But what got me through it was the program, the Sentinels of Freedom Scholarship Foundation program. They were always supportive. They were always there to provide me, with any type of assistance. But more importantly, when Tyner, go ahead.
What did that program do? I mean, was it just, you see, it's a scholarship. Did it give you access to something? Was it, or was
Yeah.
it, I don't want to say just, was it support, or was that how you got into college? Like, what does that program itself do?
Yeah, so what the Sentinels of Freedom Scholarship Foundation program is, it's a program that helps wounded veterans complete their academic route, and
Okay.
they
Okay.
do that through financial. They do that by providing tutors. They do that by buying equipment. I mean,
Gotcha.
they bought me a
Gotcha.
computer at the time because I was reckless with my money. They were able to pay a portion of my rent for a while until I could do it on my own. But the biggest thing, I think, the most impactful tool that they use is the strategic partnerships with mentors that they put in your life.
Okay.
And for me, that's what it was. It was getting with Win, and growing, and seeing the value in myself. But like I mentioned, it was only a band-aid, right? It was only a band-aid because soon after that graduation, again, I had nothing. In fact, here's the thing. Although I graduated, and this kind of goes into the very, what is it called, high functioning depression.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Even though all that, I was getting better, right, and I was achieving my goals. Late at night, I was at home fucking suffering. I still
Yeah.
had nightmares. I
Yeah.
didn't have to sleep because I had freaking drugs, right? I didn't have to, and so I had this high functioning depression. And as soon as the lights were off, and again, I was left with my thoughts. I had to deal with it. And I remember I've always looked into plant medicine to heal
Okay.
me, plant
Okay.
medicine to better my life. And I remember it was like summer of 2017. I'm like Googling Peru and all this. And then I see that a law was passed last year, 2016 at the time, here in Arizona, that allows the use of entheogens or psychedelics
Hmm.
as a religious sacrament, and that
Yep.
there was a brand new church that was established in Tucson, Arizona, that can do just that. And that was the beginning of my like.
And was that AYA? That was Scott.
That was AYA.
Okay. That
Yeah,
was
that
Scott.
was
Okay.
AYA when they were first starting. Absolutely. Yeah, it was really cool getting down with AYA because again, I wasn't very good with money, and the Sentinels of Freedom only helps with like school related stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I could only afford one night, right, for the donation.
Hmm.
And so I make that donation and I go down there.
Okay. So
And
this is in 2017, 2018.
this
When
was
was your first
2017. This is
2017? Do you remember
yeah,
the month?
this was the late summer. I don't recall the month, but it was late summer, maybe late August.
Okay. This is fascinating to me because my first visit to AYA was May of 2017.
Mm.
Our entheogen journey is about the same length, it sounds like. So okay. So
Oh
you were
wow.
okay. So this is late August,
I think, yeah,
late
just a
summer
late summer,
sometime.
late summer.
Summer.
So it was late summer, and so I remember I only paid for one night. I get down there. It was that first night was absolutely terrifying for me, just because I wasn't reliving anything in the military, which was strange, but it was just, I had never felt that scared before, like a child, like a very adolescent scare. And just, I didn't get much out of it, I felt. Right. And I remember talking to Scott, and Scott tells me, he's like, "Hey, brother, it sounds like you need another night." And I'm like, "Yeah, but I can't afford it." He's like, "No, no, no. It's not about a donation or an energy exchange. It's just," I had told him a little bit about me. I had filled out the healthcare questionnaires and the ceremony questionnaires, so he knew a little bit about what I was dealing with. And he states, he's like, "No, no, no, just I want to help you. Just come back." Well, I couldn't come back that weekend. I had another obligation. I think I probably had my son the next day or something. So I returned the following weekend, and that following weekend when I sat with AYA, it was like it was the beginning. It was just, I've never, it's really, it's indescribable, the medicine, because everybody's journey is very unique. But
Yeah.
opening up that door, and that was the first weekend, coming back and sitting the following weekend, just walking through that door.
And you
I started,
sat how many nights that second weekend? Oh, the full
sat
weekend?
just one night. I just
Okay.
sat one night that second night.
This is fascinating because my first experience, I went down for 2 nights, and then
Hmm.
the next weekend I went back for one night.
Yeah.
And I spent all the money that I had to do it because I happened to have it from saving up. So it's just our the stories about our Aya experiences are parallels. This is really
For real,
fascinating.
dude, like the synchronicities.
Yeah, this is really cool. Okay, so you sit in sometime late summer 2017. You go to that first one, you get nothing. And the same thing, I was actually pissed off after my first weekend. I was like, what the fuck did I pay all this money for? Like, it didn't work, you know? And then I came back and I was really glad that I did. So you sit in 2017. What changes after that second weekend?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like, I'm assuming your life shifted somewhat.
Yeah, absolutely. That second ceremony that I went, I realized that the trauma that I had gone through, there were these memories that I had repressed because they were so painful for me. And one of the memories that really hit me, I used to have this nightmare that I was always drowning, and my son was in my arms and he was always drowning, and I couldn't stop my child from drowning. And then I remember vividly, and it was very painful, right? Just having to witness the firefight in the Arghandab River Valley, crossing the river, and then Hassan, yeah, just Hassan. Our interpreter. It was funny because
Mm-hmm.
Terps interpreters aren't just interpreters; they're serving just like us, and they're good
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
They're good people, and I just remember, in that ceremony, I just remembered so many details about his life that he has shared with us. And he was 22 years old. His
Okay.
hero was his dad. He
Okay.
was about to get married. Just in that ceremony, I got so many details about. I guess it was my first real introduction of what it is to be human. I felt like
Mm-hmm.
the love of a father, the love between a father and a son. I really thought about him, and
So you thought of your son and as a replacement for Hassan's dad. Oh my God. Yo.
so it was. But this was the painful thing, is that when we crossed to the other side, it was just small team. It was myself and three other guys, and we secured the far side of the river so we can close in and engage the enemy. At the time, the contact from the enemy had stopped, so they were more than likely already retreating. But we hear this
Mm-hmm.
splashing in the water, and then we all turn around and we're like, look at this guy. We're laughing because we thought he was playing around. And then we have to niche
Yeah.
the mission because, he drowned. His AK-47 got caught in rocks and it drowned. He drowned. And in that ceremony, that's what came first. It was that. And I just remember that's what came
Sad.
first, and it was just painful. And I go talk to Scott, the lead facilitator, and I say, "Hey, my brother, this is." I tell him what I feel, and then he said, "It's okay, just feel it." And I felt how genuine he was in his caring, and I received some hape, and that really opened me up. And I just remember very vividly, I feel like a slow little drop coming towards me, and then it just boom. And again, now that's when I started like getting the details. Oh, he shared that he was going to get married in a couple weeks, and
Yeah.
his hero was his father. We used
Yeah.
to make Me and Johan, we used to make fun of him because he doesn't believe in deodorant. So when we were lifting, you could smell him, but he was just a good dude and he was always
Mm-hmm.
playful. And I was thinking, like, man, curly hair is like my curly hair, like all these things in
Wow. Yeah.
ceremony. But the
And
biggest
you
thing,
and you had like blocked all of that out before. Like
well,
that wasn't something you really had thought about before.
Well, this is why I didn't think about it. I forgive myself now. But during that contact, we had people that were on leave, and I was one of the NCOs that was way at the forefront. The acting platoon sergeant asked me if we could cross the river. And, again, I'm 22 years old. In hindsight, it's not normal for a fucking 22-year-old to make a life and death decision, which at the time we didn't think it was death decision. It was my young aggressiveness trying to be a soldier, be an infantryman, and do my thing. And I was like, heck yeah, we can cross. And yes, it might have been true, but for a long time, I had subconsciously carried that guilt, that survivor's guilt, that
Yes.
because of
Yeah.
I could have said, no, we can't. And we would have just went back,
Yeah. But
did the
yeah.
report, but we
Yeah.
crossed. And so I held that. But the beautiful thing after that is that I had like such a good cry. I will live like the rest of my life making up for that decision,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I'll be
Mm-hmm.
honored to carry that burden, and I'll
Mm-hmm.
make up for that decision. But
Mm-hmm.
I that ceremony opened that up for me, and I started realizing why it hit me. Why am I so self-destructive? Why do I put on this poker face that
Because you
everything is
planned.
okay, but in actuality
Mm-hmm.
I'm really dying inside,
Yeah.
right? And it's
Yeah.
because of this. And then the last
Yeah.
thing, brother, like towards the end of the ceremony, I get nothing. I just it's stillness, and it was just like it's okay, my child. It's okay. It was beautiful. It was strong.
Wow. Wow.
I
So
really go ahead.
all you've been through, your dad and his friends, family members having to move, dropping out of school, working construction, getting involved with the wrong crowd, being in the military, getting shot twice. Twice? You got shot twice?
Shot once, and I took
Shot
a little
once.
scrap, little scratch for
Shrapnel
shrapnel.
a second time. So injured, but injured twice, yes. And you were resuscitated a couple times, so you may have died a couple times. And the first memory that came up was that river crossing with a
Yeah,
son.
it was that.
Wow.
It was just a big responsibility, a big
Yeah, I
burden
totally get it.
that I took it, man. And it was for me it was transformative because I remember leaving that
Yeah.
ceremony and I was lighter, right?
Yeah.
And throughout from there, I started sitting with ayahuasca more consistently. It would
Okay.
be a couple of months in between.
Yeah.
Now I call it an oil change, a tune up. We all kind of need that every now and then. We all need a new cry. With that being said, I do want to pause. I'm not trying to say that ayahuasca or any plant medicine is the key to healing. That's not the case. What
Part of
what
it.
what helps with yeah, it's a tool, but what helps and promotes healing within ourselves is the opportunity of stillness and introspection. With plant medicine, and this is where the value of it comes through, is when you have such a chaotic mind and soul and spirit, and you're unable to find that stillness. And Mother Ayahuasca kicking you in the ass a couple of times might give you that stillness that you need. And so that's what it did for me. It forced me
Yeah.
in that position where I have to kind of just eat my leftovers, if you will.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
it was powerful, man. And that was just the first one. I mean, I've had powerful ceremonies.
I bet. So okay, so 2017, you go those 2 weeks. When's the next time that you sit? How long is the break between?
I think the break is close to like 6 months,
Okay.
maybe.
So you go back sometime in
Like in the beginning of the following year, like beginning of 2018, I go back again.
18. Okay, yeah. So yeah, beginning somewhere in there.
And this is when I start like realizing, I start healing my relationship with my family. I just remember, because they all start blending in together, the ceremonies. But I remember one of the first ceremonies after that was like I really feeling the burden of responsibility of what it is to be a mother and a grandmother.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
to be a brother. I think my mother's my hero. I say that shamelessly. I love my mother. I recognize her struggle and everything she's done for us, for my siblings and I to be where we are today. But I had never, and this is why I appreciate my family. My mother is just I was put in a situation in where I like, as crazy as this is gonna sound, but it's like the medicine here, hold this, and I'm holding the pain of my grandmother, and I'm just feeling how she feels as her grandchildren are
Mm-hmm.
hungry, or how we have to walk to school, like it's 2 miles one way, so she's walking with us 2 miles, coming back 2 miles. She's walking 8 miles a day in the heat of the summer in Phoenix, in the winter in Phoenix, or us being the, again, shout out to the Salvation Army, but our Christmas being to the mercy of the Salvation Army
Yeah.
for donated Christmases, and
Wow.
my grandmother losing her sons to the crazy conspiracy charge that happened in Washington, like feeling all that pain, it was absolutely transformative.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yes. So your grandma worked very hard to support you. Your mom did too. All the women in your family worked very hard to support all of you. And so they had to carry all their pain, but they couldn't show it because they had to help take care of you. And they didn't want to make you feel all the stuff they were going through because you weren't ready for it because you were kids. And so now that you've had your own more life experience, you're in a better place, mentally, physically, spiritually, all those type of things. Do you feel that you are like ancestral trauma? Are you sort of releasing that pain that they've been holding their whole lives, or are they passing it to you and you're going to hold it for them and interpret it and try to transmute it. Like how do you see that as like do you understand what I mean?
I know exactly
Okay.
what you mean.
Okay.
It's interesting that you're asking that question because recently I love my mother and my grandmother. Recently we started meditating together when I see them on the weekend. Again, my mother and my grandmother, they come from the motherland. Like they're from El Rancho down in Michoacan. Like they don't, what would we say, this very non-traditional way of worshiping spirit, right? They don't. And so one thing that we recently had a discussion about is that it is my responsibility as well as my children's responsibility to heal the generational trauma that exists, right? And me being where I'm at today with, again, beautiful synchronicities the universe gives you, being where I'm at today, I'm in a position and where I could literally do my best to heal it. Might not heal all of it, but at least I can mitigate some of that generational trauma that could potentially spill over to my children.
And then yeah, and then your kids have an easier time than you did, and then their kids will have an easier time. And I mean, ideally,
Exactly.
obviously, okay.
Exactly. And I think like that's part of not only my family. Again, I love my family, of course. Definitely a family man. Very much family oriented. Definitely believe in that work life balance. Family is my focus. But kind of want to talk a little bit about the I am mission here.
Yeah, it's
Because
a
we're
good
here in the
segue.
yeah. It's thinking about so this was the winter of 2020. I sat at ceremony and I was mentioning, well, in a previous conversation you and I had, I mentioned one of my buddies. Yeah, so yeah, my buddy. So my buddy, he's he reaches out to me and we're staying in contact because we're both kind of nerds. We've always been nerds and we had
Okay,
a very
sorry, who's this buddy? Army buddy,
yeah, he's
childhood
an army.
buddy,
Sorry.
army
Yeah,
buddy.
so
Okay, okay.
I'm only omitting his name out of respect for him and
Yeah,
his
no, no,
wishes, right?
just
But yeah, he was an army buddy of mine.
army buddy.
He
Okay,
had, he had some very powerful experiences overseas. He made some decisions that hurt his fellow soldiers. I mean, one story he shared with me after one of his ceremonies was having to the United States Army accidentally targeted a hillside that they thought were insurgents and actually happened to be
friendly
children.
fire. Oh
And he had
no.
to climb up that mountain with other soldiers and he had to drag he had to put the bodies of the children down the mountain.
Oh,
And he mentioned during that ceremony, all he could remember was the blood of those children dripping down his
yeah.
back, his crack in his legs, and it was powerful, man. And so I had not known any of this of his experience. I had not known that he had gone through this. All I know is that, man, this is my buddy. We served together. He has a lot of resentment, not only for the military, but also has a lot of regret. I had told him about ayahuasca, but he couldn't make it down. He didn't really believe in it. He was
Does
like,
he
"Oh, I'm
live?
good."
Does he live in the area or is he away?
No, now he's away. I think now he's in Illinois. Today he's in Illinois. He eventually came down here. I just remember I sat with that ceremony and I was again appreciating my service and
Hmm.
appreciating the relationships that I had developed and just really appreciating that and then the burden of responsibility that I had
Yeah,
once felt that I can
yeah,
now let go because it's not, it's really not my fault, and I was kind of getting to that point that I was just doing the best with what I knew. I was doing the best with the tools that I was giving, with the
yes,
life experience that I had at that time.
yes.
And then I just remember part of that ceremony, like a major part of that ceremony was this guy, he's in a garage in Idaho in the fucking winter with no heater. And he's like talking about not specifically saying he's going to take his life, but it's like borderline suicidal ideation. And I'm concerned.
Okay, so you are having this connection to him in ceremony, or you're talking to
Ceremony.
him. Oh,
No,
okay,
I'm
okay,
having this
okay.
connection in ceremony
In
because he had
ceremony,
already
okay,
conveyed this to me.
okay,
And
okay.
so I remember I come out of ceremony and I'm talking to my buddy Ronnie, Ronnie Folk, and I say, "Hey brother," he's like, "I got to do something about him. I got to take care of my brother." Serve with him. I've known him for years. I've known him since I was a private. I've known him throughout my entire military career, and we still keep in touch. And then now he's telling me this, and I'm not doing anything. And so I go up to Scott, I talked to Scott and I said, "Hey, I got to do something." And I said, "Hey, let's start." And then immediately it just came. It was like the Aya mission. And Scott says, "I like that. That sounds good. The Aya mission." Turned to Ronnie and he's like, "Yeah, the Aya mission. Let's make it happen." And then from there, it was building the plane in the air, a lot of mistakes, but today we're thriving, man. And so
So would you say that the IA mission, once you had that realization and that epiphany of what you need to do, is that sort of similar to the Sentinel program that you were in for community college, as far as the idea of like, we're going to try to get you, we're going to get you to where you need to go. We're going to support you while you're there, but we don't always have the resources to support you before and after. Like we can't like bring you into rehab, but we can get you to ceremony. Is that sort of a similar idea that
Right.
spawned?
Initially, because at that time I was fairly inexperienced and I was new to the plant medicine community, and I was also new to a lot of the research that was out there. I had not realized at the time the importance of preparation and integration. I mean, there's a
Okay.
saying, right?
Okay.
The medicine is for the right person at the right time. It's really not
Yes.
for everybody. And
Yeah.
that has to be taken seriously. There's a lot of caution that needs to be taken when you're using plant medicines, right? Because there's an inherent danger in putting your brain in a making your brain plastic for a period of time where it makes you
Yeah.
susceptible to influence, and
Yep.
and more importantly, you're in this afterglow phase where you think you've reached out self-actualization because everything feels great, but
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
still have
But
things you
yeah.
haven't worked out. Oh,
Yeah.
and then people
Yeah.
end up making these decisions. That was one of the major reasons why we started the IA mission, is because of that. Is not only did I want to help my buddy here, right? I wanted to help my buddy, right? But it was also understanding that there was a danger out there. The danger was
Okay.
that people are literally buying these strong psychedelics, going to their house and then just taking them and then just going out
Yeah.
without any preparation,
Yeah.
without any integration, without
Yeah.
having a support network, without even, I mean, I say this quite a bit, but it wasn't just ayahuasca that did it, like that helped me,
No.
where I'm at today. I really leaned into my VA mental health counselors. Like
Okay.
I already had a relationship with them.
Okay.
And that's the whole thing. I want people to know listening to this that, like, yes, the VA has a bad rap, and there are like pitfalls that we can point out and
Of course.
many experiences, but for the most part, those people are there because they want to be there, and they're not going to turn you away if you're seeking a counselor or therapist after a psychedelic ceremony. I
Yeah.
mean,
Okay.
my thing was, I'm sitting with the medicine, and within a month, I'm going to sit with my mental health counselor. In
Yeah.
fact,
You
I've
should
two
do
of them
that.
have absolutely
Yeah.
two of
Yeah.
them have already retired, but I've always been honest, right? And I've always said, hey, this is what I'm doing, right? And he's like, okay, we're going to do it anyways,
Okay.
right? So they want to help you. I will say that there are other solutions that the VA offers now, traditional, that is more non-traditional mental health treatment, of course. But that was the pitfall that we saw. People are just going to ceremony, right? Sitting with it and then going home, right?
Okay.
Without any preparation and without any integration. Now, what integration is integration is taking the insights, meaning the lessons that you captured during your ceremony, and then applying them to your everyday life. And there has to be a plan to do that. You can't. It's in my opinion, it's borderline reckless to recommend the medicine to someone, without items that
Oh,
exist.
right. Like having a support system before and after is
You
almost
have
is
to.
I would say is probably more important than the ceremony itself. I know that sounds
Absolutely.
weird, but that's really what it is. So was the IA mission was founded not so much as a scholarship program to get
No,
vets
no.
to get to ceremonies. It was founded as a support system for vets before and after ceremonies, and then the scholarship part just sort of was a natural progression
Well,
of
yeah, absolutely.
the mission. This is me talking, just hanging out. Ulysses has done a great job. I suppose I can imagine telling these type of stories, but I could not imagine functioning in society the way that he has. It is extremely inspiring and a fucking honor to help with all this type of stuff because these guys are doing some fantastic work. Hey, I was just talking about you in a nice way. I was praising you. Okay, so the IA mission, that's where we're on now. It started as a support system basically for pre-ceremony prep, I guess just say preparation, and then post-ceremony integration.
It was just a bunch of veterans trying to help veterans. At that time, now the IA mission wasn't just me and my buddy Ronnie, but it was my buddy that we've brought in from Idaho. Now we had a fellow soldier that I've served with, Michael Tellez, and then we also had one of my mentors from Gateway Community College, who was one of my professors, became a mentor and friend. And so it was just a bunch of veterans trying to help veterans, and we were doing the best that we could with what we had, but we realized that it wasn't enough, right? And so we were able to. This is beautiful because you just interviewed the acting executive director of the I Mission, Patrick
Did.
Gibbons.
I
Yeah,
did.
love that guy. And there was a point in my life in where I was going to walk away from the I Mission. This was in the fall of actually 2023. Right. The reason being is that with my day job, I'm a healthcare analyst. It's pretty
Okay.
demanding,
Yeah.
right? I'm a healthcare analyst. Plus, I'm a father. You know, I have a six at the time. It was more of a 14-year-old, right? I got to build memories with him. I want to build memories with him.
Teenagers require a lot of energy too. Yeah.
I just had a brand new baby at the time. There's a lot
Oh
going
wow.
on, and on top of that, you know, I have little brothers in Mexico that I support
Hmm.
financially. So I had so much going on, and so
Okay.
I was going to walk away because in order for us to coordinate, you know, the resources that we have, it's a lot of work, right? It's a labor of love. We love to help people, right? But you need to have the bandwidth in order to put something like that together. And at the time, it was difficult to, because we were all inexperienced. But here comes Patrick, right? So I meet Patrick
Oh
and
wait, hold on. So for
yeah,
2 years, for 3 years, from 2000, late 2020 until 2023, it was basically just you and a couple of guys
and onesies and twosies, absolutely,
helping people just prep and integrate and just like sort of like friends, brothers support.
exactly.
It wasn't like an actual, we're going to get you to ceremony, we're going to tell you everything. It was just a couple of guys and some one-offs just helping as you could. Okay.
Right. And I had like at the time I had reached out to like VA counselors and I had
Yeah.
reached out to
And no
people.
one, no one, no one
No,
could
they're like,
help
nah,
or
we're not
yeah.
doing that, which
Yeah.
blew my mind. I'm like, are you saying that if you had a heroin addict that was asking for help because he's a heroin addict, you're like, yeah, I got no resources for you? Like, it just didn't make sense to me. It didn't make sense to me. It was tough, man.
Okay, so you were there to fill the gap in what the VA was basically like people who do plant medicine are not that they're on their own, but they don't have any training or any sort of really idea of how to support someone going through a
Well,
post IA integration.
well, you know what? Well, yeah, you know, kind of speaking right now, when it looks like when we talk about psychedelic therapy, it's fairly new, right?
Yeah, yeah,
It's a fairly new concept. So it's just you have people that have been trained traditionally and they have this compartmentalized mentality that
yes,
this is the way that it's done. And
yes,
some people are incapable of expanding beyond that and say that, wait a minute, we can go beyond that.
yeah,
And there
got it,
might be
got it.
other, you know, those types of things. I mean, it was tough, man. And so with
So
me,
okay, so late 2023,
mhm,
you have a 14-year-old son, you have a newborn kid, you're working as a healthcare analyst, you're also doing the IA mission stuff, you're also attending IA ceremonies, doing your own work, and you're sort of getting overwhelmed. Not, I mean, not necessarily burned
yeah,
out, but it's just too much. And you meet
it is.
Patrick. You meet Patrick
That's exactly it.
where?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what happened was that I had conveyed to our network, "Hey, I'm gonna put a strategic pause because it's just too much for me to
Yep.
handle." You know, at the time, I was already in remission from cancer. I had a thyroid cancer,
Jesus, we didn't even talk about this. You had thyroid. Jesus,
and so I
Ulysses,
was
man.
like, I was dealing with a
Whew.
lot of healthcare stuff. It's actually I
Yeah,
got that nice little scar here.
yeah, yeah.
It's part of the burn pit exposure plus. Shameless plug here to all the veterans watching. Please see your VA, go ahead and do the toxic exposure screening at your at your VA because if you've been in Afghanistan, you probably going to develop something that needs to be checked out.
Are you good now? Is it 100%
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
remission? Okay, okay.
Yeah,
Or
well,
cut out and good.
I'm still in remission. Technically, you're in remission for a 10-year
Forever.
window, so I'm
Okay.
like 3 years in, 2 years in,
Okay.
2 years
Okay.
in, 3 years in,
But they,
3 years.
but they, I'm assuming surgery and got it
Yeah,
all. Okay.
absolutely. Yeah, just less than a year ago, I had a follow up with my
Okay.
endocrinologist, and there's
Okay.
no traces
Okay.
with.
So you have a 14-year-old, you have a newborn, you're a healthcare analyst, you're sitting in IA ceremonies, you are doing the helping run the IA mission, and you're recovering from thyroid cancer in 2023.
Right.
Okay.
Just a
And then you
lot.
meet Patrick. Yeah, that's Jesus. No wonder you were like, I can't do this. I don't know if I can do this. It's
It
like
was just
you meet.
it was really
Okay.
affecting my health. And
Yeah.
so I meet Patrick because I'm gonna put this down. I'm gonna say, hey, I'm gonna
Where do
and
you meet Patrick? Where do you meet
well,
Patrick?
actually, Scott from the Arizona Yahe Assembly introduced
Okay.
Patrick to me via
Nice.
phone.
Nice.
And then I just
Okay.
remember talking to Patrick and really want to thank him because he really put a fucking boot in my ass, a fire in my
Mm-hmm.
ass, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I was mentioning, hey Patrick, it's just something it's too much for me to do. It's hard. And he was like, hey buddy, like let's don't put it down. He's like, let me take care of it until you're ready to come back. Until you're ready to come back. Let me take care of it and let's go ahead and support this thing. And she convinced me, and the Memorial Day of 2024. Again, we met the fall of 2023. So we have this going back and forth. I'm kind of my foot in, my foot out. I'm like we might be causing more harm than we're doing good. And
Gotcha. Gotcha.
so so we get down to Memorial Day 2024, and this is going to be the first revamp of the IA mission, right? And then now, Patrick as the executive director, myself as the director of operations, we still needed to have a person be as the director of veteran outreach. Also, we still needed an IT director. We didn't have that. We didn't have that veteran outreach person I just mentioned. We didn't have a clear partnership with certified psychedelic coaches for integration, but we did have other veterans that wanted to assist. And so this kind of another plug to Richard Mulder, right, from Africa's Coaching Initiative. I believe you interviewed him as
It
well.
was our first interview. So you met him around
So I met
like, okay.
hmm, I met Richard through Merging Vets and Players. It's a veteran nonprofit,
So
right?
outside of Aya,
Outside of Aya, but he had just sat with the Heroic Hearts Project. By the way, Heroic Hearts
I
Project,
remember when he
great
talked about that.
program, champions of the community,
Sounds
really.
fantastic.
Yeah, and just kind of a little shameless plug. They take care of organizations like ours that want to improve the community and advocate for safe use of plant medicine.
And Heroic Hearts often takes veterans down to Peru, right? Like
Yeah,
they
well,
or help
that's
organize those trips.
exactly. So, from my understanding, this is the key difference between the Heroic Hearts Project and ours, and I believe that they're also changing their model. But is that we focus on the domestic use, legal use,
Yep.
having the legal
Yep.
protections,
Yep.
partnering with ethical churches, organizations that are administering the medicine, having the appropriate safety protocols, having certified psychedelic coaches, having an actual rolled out program that's willing to help veterans, right? And so we do that domestically, right? When we talk
Yes.
about harm reduction, right? The IA mission, we are focused on harm reduction in the veteran community. And the way that we reduce harm is we take that cohort of veteran, those group of veterans that are already seeking alternative treatment, and we say, hey, instead of you buying these drugs and going to your living room and then just taking them and then going out to the world, let us first show you what programs already exist that you have access to as a veteran with the Department of Veterans Affairs or other programs, or let us enroll you in our program, and then let us enroll you in our program, connect you with peer support network with a certified psychedelic coach for preparation. Let us connect you with a church that's been practicing for years, practicing legally, practicing ethically.
It's trustworthy. You've sat with them.
The Arizona Yahe, 100%. And then on top of that, if you go to safeceremonies.com, you see reviews of all these ceremonies across the United States, or churches across the United States, that people will literally tell you what's going on in those churches. And so the point being is that we not only reduce harm by connecting veterans to certified psychedelic coaches and safe organizations, but what we also do is we aim to remove that financial barrier that exists to access these medicines. I mean, think about it this way: most people still think you got to go to Peru to sit with sacred medicine, and that's $3,000 to $6,000 when the average American can't even afford a $400 emergency.
No,
Like,
it's
that's
yeah.
unrealistic for them to. Hey, yeah, you're a single mother of three, right? But let's go ahead and save the $6,000 so you can go down there. Like, that doesn't make any sense, right? This is where, when we look at the North American Association of Visionary Churches, Arizona Yahe Assembly, and other plant medicine churches out there advocating for the protections to use this medicine as a religious sacrament, not only does it provide healing, but it removes this barrier to access the medicine and makes it like realistically attainable for someone. It's a bit shameful that healings, the opportunity to heal sits behind a paywall.
Yes.
And it's
Yes.
just painful.
Yes. Okay. So May of 2024, you meet with
Right?
Rich.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Well,
meet with Rich. And
yeah,
so he comes into the organization and he offers the preparation and the integration
correct.
function. But you haven't had an actual ceremony yet of just veterans. You've only helped a couple of people prepare and integrate after the ceremonies that they've gone to
Right, a hundred
so
percent,
far. Okay.
a
Okay.
100%. So
Okay.
connecting with Rich, and then so we connect with Patrick. He's convincing me, hey, let's go. Let's just go ahead one more time. Let's get it done. We'll say Memorial Day. I had talked to my buddy Rich Mulder, I connected with. He had sat with the Roy Carts Project. He was familiar. He had just with the medicine. He had just completed the Being True to You
Yeah.
certification program for
Yep.
psychedelic therapy.
Yep.
or coaching rather. And so we're like, let's do this, right? We go down to Memorial Day. At the time, the only veterans, which is really cool now, man, it's kind of how everything goes full circle. The only
Mhm.
veterans that were part of that first ceremony in 2024 were core members today that help the success of the Aya mission, which is beautiful, man. I think it was
Great.
like six. I think it was like six of us. I'll have to send you the picture of us, man, because
Yeah.
I still took it.
Please.
I took it. We
Please.
held it, and it was beautiful. And then I just remember after that ceremony, me, Rich, and Patrick, we get together, and all three of us we agreed, okay, we have something special. So let me fast forward today and tell you a little more about our program. So today it's a full-fledged program. We are a federally tax-exempt nonprofit, a 501c3. Right. We have our website is up and running. Of course, we have a strong social media presence. But more importantly, we made these professional relationships that are able to facilitate a network of healing for veterans that doesn't focus on the medicine, but focuses on the healing. Focuses on the preparation. This is our program. If you happen to go to theiamation.org and you select apply for a retreat in our banner, you can select the program overview button, and you can see what our program entails. So what our program entails is that we have four virtual preparation sessions before ceremony, and we have four virtual integration sessions.
Are those group? Are they personalized? The
Yeah,
group. Okay.
these are group. Now this is why it's powerful. It's because we're leveraging technology in order to make this accessible to everybody nationwide. Partnering with Africa's Coaching Initiative, with Coach Rich, we schedule these virtual group preparation sessions. Apricus has created workbooks to help veterans hone in on their support networks, the preparation they need to take, even talk about the dieta, the certain foods you want to keep away from your body before sitting with the medicine. Right. During ceremony, we also focus on food, right? We know that nutrition is a challenge. So at ceremony, the IA Mission raises money. We have a mess team, if you will, and our mess team makes sure throughout the 3 days of ceremony, we're providing ayahuasca friendly foods, right? Meaning foods without ingredients that are going to interfere with the medicine or counteract the medicine, right? And while we're on site, we're also having integration circles post ceremony, and as well, we're having developmental classes in the afternoon that are optional. I mean, we had a active meditation class one time, one Saturday, and then on the Sunday we had a yoga. And again, Tyler, if you would be available, I would absolutely love to have you as a trauma release yoga instructor for our Memorial Day 2025
Oh yeah.
ceremony.
I'm already doing
That's
it.
some, yeah,
Already doing it. Yeah, I'm already doing it. Yeah.
absolutely.
So the event you're talking about is the Veterans Day ceremony that you did in
Yeah.
late
So
2024. All right.
so
Where
that's
you brought all the veterans down and
well,
dependents, not all veterans,
well, no,
right?
not all veterans, but what I'm telling you right now is
Yeah.
I'm telling you the overview. I'm going to talk about
Oh
the
wow.
Veterans Day
Oh,
over there
there's
in a
even
little.
more. Jesus. All
Yeah.
right. Keep going. Keep
Yeah.
going.
So after ceremony, we facilitate these four integration sessions with our veterans. We do take surveys before and after to gauge a baseline for mental and emotional health for veterans, and then
Okay.
also post as well. And then we do have a 3 month follow up. Now, we believe that once you remove the barriers of trauma, then veterans are better able to administrate themselves, and that means we then connect them to the appropriate resource officers to
Yeah.
help kind of target them. Hey, you need help
Yeah.
filing your benefits? Let's connect
Great.
you with the DAV, American Legion. You want to do Brazilian Jiu Jitsu? Let's go ahead and connect you with We Defy or a Veterans Breakthrough, a local organization here. Yeah, you want to get out into the mountains and kind of contribute back with forest work? Let's connect you with AZ Trail Vets under the Arizona Trail Association.
Now
Let's connect.
everything you're saying sounds to people listening who may not have done this type of emotional stuff. All the stuff you're saying sounds really easy. Like, oh, do your benefits, call somebody. You want to go to a hike? Just go hike. Find some friends and just go hike. They might not realize that when when you can't emotionally regulate, doing these simple things, God, sitting on a call, it can be infuriating. Like you can't, you don't know why you're angry, but you're just livid because you have to go through a phone tree or picking which place to hike. I mean, just little small things that some people sort of take for granted. It is so hard when you're having trouble emotionally regulate. It's so hard. So it's fantastic you're
Absolutely.
doing that. Yeah.
Absolutely. You hit it right on
Yeah.
the money. And so now talking about our Veterans Day, this was after Memorial Day when it was such a small group. We said, hey, let's come together. let's go ahead and do this for 22 veterans, right? Let's go ahead and let's throw out this net. So we were able to bring in 22 veterans from 11 different states here down to Tucson, Arizona, rather. And I mean, we've had tremendous transformations, right? From preparation to integration. Now we have lifelong relationships. I mean, I've had a couple veterans that just because they were driving through Arizona, I want to come and see you, Ulysses. And and we developed this brotherhood and sisterhood. It's really a beautiful thing. And I think what's even more important here is that when you remove the barriers of trauma, right, or the barriers that get produced by trauma, right, you're better able to see what's the next goal, the next target, what's my next step in life, and you really start seeing people thrive. But this is the one thing I want to know, and I want to make sure that all your viewers know as well, is that I'm not advocating for the use of ayahuasca or any other plant. I'm not advocating for the use of plant medicine specifically for your trauma. It's a fantastic. So what I'm advocating for is finding the community and finding the opportunity of introspection. And if it's too hard to do that on your own, if traditional talk therapy or being overly prescribed medications is not working for you, and you're gonna look into psychedelics as a treatment, look into programs that are able to facilitate the use of that in a safe and secure manner and provide the appropriate support network for you to succeed.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's really fantastic. So the Veterans Day went really, really well. And like we've said before, the prep and the integration is almost more important, or as at least as equally important as the actual ceremony. And a lot of people think like, oh, I'm gonna go take psychedelics and I'm gonna see cool lights and I'm gonna think of things. And it's really, I think of it as like a very accelerated therapy session. I mean, sort of, I mean, sometimes people say 6 months of therapy in one night. It can be sort of like that. But because of that acceleration, you need a lot more support because you can't on your own process everything. Sorry, you can't always on your own process all that type of stuff. And then you have to emotionally regulate as you're trying to process, as you're trying to like go back to your job the next week. And so basically you have a group of people that have been there before, who have been doing this, who are just basically, hey, it's the old story about the guy in the hole and the friend jumps down and says, well, I've been here before. I know how to get out. You're sort of that helping hand type of thing going on. All right. And so you're doing all of this again on Memorial Day.
Right.
This Memorial Day. There are still spots open, I'm assuming. There's still some spots open. Okay.
Yeah, it's cool that we're having this conversation today on the 15th because today we opened our registration for dependents, caregivers, and survivors. The big thing about the IA mission is, yes, we're very much focused on the veteran community, but we strongly believe with one serves, the entire family serves.
Yep.
And so we definitely we front load our veterans that are going to attend. However, if there's spots, right, or special circumstances before that we lift that acceptance date, or when we start accepting dependents, caregivers, and survivors, we really believe that that's very important too. And so today being April 15th, today marks the day when we start registering those dependents.
And so these ceremonies, they have, I'm not going to say that there's a hierarchy of facilitators or karma crew or anything like else, but really for these type of events, we're looking at people who have experience, who are not that you can't be a good facilitator and only have started ayahuasca a year ago, but you're talking about people who have experience working with veterans, people who have experience living with veterans, people who have experience being a veteran. I say that as I'm on the karma crew that's going, so I will be there as well. So this isn't a bunch of newbies trying to help. This is a bunch of people who have already done some of this work. Who, of course, we're not all healed. Like there's not that, but we know how to help people through this. And there's more than just one person to help. There are 5 of me. There are 5 of you, type, right. Or even more.
Right.
And so in talking about that, because I'm involved in this, I'm looking at the campfire.apricuscoaching.com.
Perfect.
Sort of like a Slack a little bit, maybe a Slack Teams type of thing, or Basecamp. And so what this is, run by Richard Mulder, Apricus Coaching. And so this functions as the preparation for the event. And I know our first call, now this podcast won't be out today, but our first call is tonight. And so have you been on these calls before? Like what are those calls like?
Yeah, let me clear that up a tiny bit. So, right. So what the Ancestral Campfire, what you're looking at, this is going to be an ongoing resource for veterans, right? So one thing, yeah. So anybody who has received a membership, it's a lifetime membership, And
Cool.
here we're going to have it's, as you can see in the website, you'll be part of a forum for the eye mission where you can discuss different insights, just kind of check in with one another. But on top of that, if you look in Ancestral Campfire, you also have resources to develop spiritually, physically, and your health, right? Mental, with, physical and mental health. You even got a reading nook, which I love, right? Kind of recommend. We're developing, or rather, Rich developed a community for us to continue our growth. You see, one of the biggest things when it comes to the veteran community, especially when you leave, is that you have a loss of sense of identity.
Yeah.
This is how you see a
Yeah.
lot of veterans still wear their military, unit, the
Yeah.
hat with their unit, and
Yeah.
and some people still wear their military boots, whatever it is, because you have your identity is associated with the military. And so when you're separated from the military, you also have like this fracture of who your identity is. What Ancestral Campfire and also with the IA mission is, we aim to build a community for veterans to help one another, veterans to
Yep.
grow, right? Hey, buddy,
Yep.
I'm now 100%. Let's see. Let's get you up to 100%. Right?
Okay.
Are you registered at the VA? Let me show you how to go to eligibility enrollment and get ready.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Gotcha. Gotcha. Very cool. Very
yeah.
cool.
And
Okay.
so
So this is,
that's what it
yes,
is.
this is an ongoing thing. Like you said, there's a community blog, there's a mental health thing, physical wellness, spiritual development, peer support. Because it's really it's a whole thing. It's not just, I mean, I know in Peru, the shamans said that you work on body, mind, and then spirit. Because if you don't do it in that order, you won't be able to sort of get to where you need to go. Because if your body's not set, then you won't be able to relax to get to the mind. If your mind's not clear, then you can't relax to get to the spiritual part. And so this basically is helping develop all of that. I mean, and I'm not saying not everyone has to start going to the gym every single day and looking swole and buff like Ulysses and Rich do. But I mean, they can start doing yoga. Like they can be as swole as me, with some nice yoga. So it's cool to see all of those things. And there's also peer support, like you said, Reading Nook. There's some Ram Dass stuff, some cool stuff. The Kybalion, some great things. Do you have expectations for these ceremonies? Or what do you sort of think? What sets apart the Aya mission ceremonies versus the public ceremonies that are available to anybody?
So what sets the IA mission apart is that when you're going to a non-veteran focused ceremony, you're going there essentially with a bunch of strangers.
Yeah,
However, after ceremony,
you end up being
everybody's pretty
friends. Yeah, yeah,
close.
for sure.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
guys
yeah,
are
for
really
sure.
close.
Yeah,
For example, this upcoming Memorial Day ceremony 2025, we have 4 virtual preparation sessions. In those virtual preparation sessions, we're going to start developing a community amongst ourselves. We're going to develop this unit. When we get down to the site, not to say that it's very military, but I like to stay organized. There's a safety brief, there's accountability. We make sure we have a battle buddy system to make sure everybody has each other's back. And we always say in the IA mission, while we're there on campus and while we're part of the IA mission, we are our brothers and sisters keepers, and it's a responsibility to have each other's back. And then we promote that message throughout preparation, right? So what makes it different is when you get there, although we've met each other virtually, when you get on site, you're there with people you're serving with. You're
yeah,
there with your
yeah,
brothers and sisters that you've
yeah,
developed a relationship over these
yeah,
last couple of weeks. So you
yeah.
have a sense of familiarity, and more importantly, your apprehension is a little less reduced because you're there with familiar faces and
Okay.
voices.
Yeah. And like you said, I mean, so it's more organized than a regular ceremony, meaning there are times, there are meal chimes, and everything is provided as well. That's a big difference. Is while people are allowed to obviously go stay somewhere else during the day and rest if they want to,
Absolutely.
they can stay on site. Everyone will be fed, like you said, Aya friendly meals. And so they don't have to go anywhere else, which
No,
cuts
they
down
don't.
on planning time and cuts down on cost and cuts down on just frustration. Because I know one of the things of staying in Tucson, sometimes it's an hour from downtown Tucson to the Aya complex out there.
Quite a
And
bit.
I mean, that drive, that's 2 hours every day. And that sometimes can open, I know in my earlier times, the drive there sometimes enraged me because I would just get in traffic and I wish that I had been able to completely detach from the city for 3 days. And that's what this sort of offers. And you have a sort of a ramp up and a pre-selected friend group that's already there, ready to support you, or, partner group, whatever you want to call it, right there, already to support you. So you're
Your
not
battle
going
buddy.
in. Yeah. You're not going in blind. So that sounds pretty great.
Yeah,
Cool.
absolutely. Yeah, it's such a fantastic program. I think that when you, like you mentioned, when you remove the anxiety of what am I going to get to eat or where I'm going to
Hmm.
sleep, or I got to
Hmm.
travel back, when you remove that and
Hmm.
you make the participant feel that this weekend is about you. I mean, on the AYA campus, the Arizona Yahe Assembly campus, they have a shower, they have restrooms, lodging, they have the big Maloka where we all sleep as a family, or participants have the option of they cleared out a camping area if they want to bring. We had people in our last event bring a tent,
Yeah.
and they had all intents and purposes, no pun intended, to sleep out there. But by the end of the first night, they're like, man, this is my family, and we
Yeah.
were all under the Maloka together,
Yeah.
and so it's a
Yeah.
beautiful thing, absolutely
Yeah.
beautiful thing.
Yeah. That's really cool. That's really cool. How many people, or is there any, do you have any, like a quick, not a quick, but a success story from the Veterans Day one? Like, did any particular
Yeah.
attendee stand out more than, I mean, I know that everyone has their own journey, but is there anyone that stood out to you particularly that you'd like to share? You don't have to share names or,
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. I'll be more than happy to share. Andrew Lunsford.
yep,
Andrew Lunsford
who
is,
was on episode 2. Yep.
yeah, he's one of our success stories, right? Andrew Lunsford. I remember first meeting him. I think we bonded because we both have a wrestling background.
Okay.
He's a stocky dude. They call him Doc. And what's really cool is that he went down there with soldiers that he had served with.
Oh, did he?
So he knew people down there. So they knew that was Doc. That first night that I met him, he was very
Yeah.
apprehensive about the
Yeah. He
medicine.
almost left. He almost left after the first night, he said.
So I remember talking to him that morning when the sun was coming up. This fire was we were around the bonfire, and he was like, "Man, I didn't get much out of it, And he wasn't his thing. And then here comes the second night. And this is from my recollection. He has a second night, and I just, I'm there to support, and I meet him outside in the middle of ceremony, and we start talking about our spouses, right? And how much my wife means to me. My wife Chelsea today. I mean, she's my rock. She's the only reason why I'm able to do what I do, because she takes care of everything in the castle to make sure that I can execute. And
Yeah.
she's absolutely amazing. And so I had
Yeah.
conveyed that with him. He sat the second night, and then the third night, and that third morning, he was just, I have a lot to process. Let me fast forward just a couple of months ago. Like, actually, almost a couple of months ago, about a month before you interviewed him. He calls me and he's like, "Hey man, I want to talk to you." And I'm like, "Yeah, what's up, Andrew? What's going on?" And he said, "Hey, look, I just want to let you know, man, thank you." He's like, "Thank you. Because of the opportunity to heal, I was able to remove all these mental barriers and see what's
Mm-hmm.
truly in front of me." He had
Mm-hmm.
conveyed the relationship between him and his wife and his family in general, just his
Mm-hmm.
family as a whole, has strengthened. He sees the
Mm-hmm.
value, and he sees, everything that's been given to him, and he really appreciates that. But more importantly, he was able to score a lucrative contract with the business
Yeah.
he owns,
Right.
right? Like, just clearing all these different mental barriers so he can succeed. And what's really cool is that now he's part of our veteran outreach group, which is
Cool.
super
That's
cool. So
great.
now so now he's out there. He's like, "Hey, I want to be part of the I mission. How can I help?"
That's great.
We're not a traditional veteran nonprofit, and where we're like hosting get-togethers every weekend or
Yeah.
having a table. We will eventually have education
You're
events.
a mission-based nonprofit. You're not an
There you
everyday
go.
nonprofit. There you go.
There
Yeah.
you go. Mission based.
Yeah.
But his niche and his story fits perfectly what we do, and which is sharing his story. He's such a likable dude, right?
God.
And the fact, I mean, he's a
Yeah.
combat medic. I mean, he knows what it is. He knows what the pain is like, and he knows what the pain through healing is like. So it's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, if anyone has listening to this has not listened to episode 2, I highly recommend going back and listening to Andrew and I talk, because he had some wild stories. And he, again, like you just said, he's praised his wife a lot for being able to hold down one part so he could do this other part. He ended up meeting the Home Depot, I think it was Home Depot CEO for something. And he just said he just wouldn't have felt worthy to do that before doing all this work. It wasn't just Aya, it was a bunch of different things, but
Absolutely.
it's just fascinating to see that, because you could see like the light is in his eye. You could see the light in his eyes. And I'm sure for a lot of people, and I'm sure you've had the same thing, you've probably seen your eyes without the light in them a lot. And it's nice to see, you're sort of yourself lighting up.
Yeah, absolutely.
We are running out of time
Okay.
because we've been talking for 2 hours now, my friend. because you're awesome. We're like an hour 45. This is the longest one we've done so far.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So we're obviously going to have to do this again, but this has been absolutely fantastic. Absolutely love your story. Is there anything that I have not asked that you wanted to share, that you wanted to get out there? What hit me with it?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So, what I want to share with everybody watching is that please understand that you cannot conquer what you don't confront, right? The only limitations that we set for ourselves are the ones here that we're really capable of so many things, but we got to start believing in ourselves. And in order to believe in ourselves, we really have to confront those traumas, confront that issue. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to reach out to your person, to your brother and sister, to your left and right, to take the next step. You are worthy. You are divine. I also want to share that we would 100% appreciate your support. You guys can visit us at theimission.org. We're also on Facebook at The I Am Mission or at Instagram at The I Am Mission as well. We also have a new merch shop, a new store to raise funds so you could donate directly. Again, we are a tax exempt
Yep.
nonprofit, so you could use that as a tax write off. So we definitely appreciate your donations. Your donations not only go towards food, but it goes to cover the psychedelic coaching and counseling and the resources there to support that. It supports veterans, traveling and potential overhead that we need, as well as those administrative causes. But if you can't donate, well, you want a cool shirt, a cup, a sweater, go down to our website, check out the merch shop, and please support us by buying something to show your pride in the veteran community and showing that you support the I Am Mission's mission. So thank
Very
you guys.
cool. Very cool. All right, let's going to wrap up. So that was fantastic. I'm going to put all these links in the show notes, and I don't know if obviously some people listening to this on audio. So I was dancing when Ulysses started going off his last little bit because it feels so good to see this happening. It
Yes.
really does. If you're listening, you can probably hear him. If you're looking, you can see his excitement and his passion for all this. And all the money for the I Am Mission goes straight towards helping veterans do stuff, specifically helping them get to ceremony, helping them eat at ceremony, that type of thing. And like you said, it's a fully legal 501c3 nonprofit, so you can get tax benefits and everything. All right, so Ulysses, I thank you so much for being on. You did fantastic. He was so nervous about that. I'm going to bring it up. You were so nervous about
I
this,
was
and I
nervous.
wasn't sure you were ever going to come on.
I didn't want to.
And then you
I've never
nailed
done
it.
that.
You nailed it. You
Never done
absolutely
that.
nailed it.
I've been asked
Absolutely
for
nailed it.
podcast, never done it. And
I know, you
thank for
absolutely
making-
nailed it. So thank you very much. For Tyler Hurst, Microdose Yoga, that's been Ulysses, and thanks.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, Tyler.
Thank you.
What I want to share with everybody watching is that please understand that you cannot conquer what you don't confront, right? The only limitations that we set for ourselves are the ones here that we're really capable of so many things, but we got to start believing in ourselves. And in order to believe in ourselves, we really have to confront those traumas, confront that issue. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid don't be afraid to reach out to your person, to your brother and sister, to your left and right, to take the next step. You are worthy. You are divine. I also want to share that we would 100% appreciate your support. You guys can visit us at theimission.org. We're also on Facebook at The I Am Mission or at Instagram at The I Am Mission as well. We also have a new merch shop, a new store to raise funds so you could donate directly. Again, we are a tax exempt nonprofit,
Yep.
so you
Yep.
could use that as a tax write off. So we definitely appreciate your donations. Your donations not only go towards food, but it goes to cover the psychedelic coaching and counseling and the resources there to support that. It supports veterans, traveling and potential overhead that we need, as well as those administrative causes. But if you can't donate, well, you want a cool shirt, a cup, a sweater, go down to our website, check out the merch shop, and please support us by buying something to show your pride in the veteran community and showing that you support the I Am Mission's mission. So thank
Very
you guys.
cool.